All right. Good evening and welcome to the January 11th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. It is also being broadcast on cable channel 15 and streamed online by FCTV. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. I'd like to thank our staff for their continued support to this commission and their diligence assisting applicants. We are missing 2 commissioners at the moment. However, we have a quorum, so we're going to move forward. I'd like to remind you guys that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. Please refrain from speaking over each other. Also, all votes will be done by roll call. When I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. A link and further instructions are located on the agenda. Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 regarding COVID-19 allows for full public participation. Therefore, if you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. And at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the act and/or bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project can proceed as proposed. However, a positive determination means that the provisions of the act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. Therefore, as an applicant, you kind of want to hear a negative determination. And for the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, following hearings are expected to be continued: 0 Pinecrest Beach and 79 Meadowneck. And I understand we have some people in the audience regarding Woodneck. This is not on the agenda tonight, so we can't open it for discussion. However, staff is conferring with Mark Kasperzik and the DPW, and we will have it on a future agenda. That date will be determined soon. With all that aside, Courtney's in the house. Vote minutes, December 21, 2022.
Chairman, I reviewed the minutes and would move approval as written. Another example of nearly perfect recording.
I talk second.
Excellent. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted. There's nothing further. We're voting. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Aye.
And Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the minutes. Thank you, Kristen. Next up is a request for a continuance for determination of applicability. Patricia Felucci, 239 Edgewater Drive East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise an existing structure to meet flood code and construct a 2nd-story carport and porch. Ben? Or
Yes,
Ms. Bergeron, I'm sorry.
Yes, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 1st.
Bird, so move.
And second.
All right, we have a motion.
Mr.
and a
Chairman?
second. Yes.
That's RAISE.
Yes, raise as an uplift out of the flood zone.
Just wanted to clarify.
Could've said-
Thank you.
No, I should have. Sorry. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till February 1st. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 2nd. Next up is a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Jerry Brown, President, Sandpoint Shores Association, Inc., 0 Pinecrest Beach Drive, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to conduct beach nourishment. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 8th.
Bird, so move.
Pat and second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 8th. Melissa?
If I may, Jen, do we know why?
I can touch on that, Melissa. I met on
Excellent.
site with Tom Bunker, representatives from the association and a representative from LEC Environmental. They wanted to discuss their next proposal to you in terms of trying to add some restoration to the area of where there was clearing to where all those kayaks have been stored. So they just wanted to speak with staff and get everyone on site to kind of brainstorm. So Tom needs a little time to put the revisions together.
Okay, is this the one that had, this is the one that had the stairs going down too, that we didn't quite know if they were,
Yes,
okay. Thanks.
you're welcome.
All right,
No more
we
questions.
have a motion and a second to continue this till February 8th. If there's nothing further, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 8th. Next up is a request for a continuance under an enforcement order. Stephen Guiggio and Kathleen Tuhig Guiggio, 192 Secondusset Road, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted clearing within conservation jurisdiction.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is, the property owner is requesting a continuance until February 8th. They're finalizing their plan.
Bird, so move.
Pat and second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 8th. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Thank you. All right. Any questions or comments? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 8th. Next up, requests for determination of applicability. 267 Clinton Ave LLC, 267 Clinton Ave, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove existing poles and overhead wires and to install underground electrical and utility conduits. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Pat and so moves.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. There's no questions or comments. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Excuse me. Next up, Jorge Garcia, 222 Ecopesket Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Pat and second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog eye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Rosalie Fink, 14 Willis Lane, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a new sewage disposal system. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project is solely located in an AE flood zone.
Thank you. Bird, so move.
Patton, second.
all right. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Frog eye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up is the continued request for determination of applicability. Jonathan Magazanik, 1 Massasoit Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove 11 trees and revegetate the area with trees and shrubs. Ms. Bergeron,
Thank you. Yes, this is a continued hearing, and they believe the homeowner is in the audience to be promoted. To refresh everyone's memory, this was an RDA to remove 11 current trees on the property. They are initially, whenever they were planted much too close together. Some are dying. They're basically a hazard currently on the property. The homeowner is asking to remove those and then revegetate the area with a couple more trees and a variety of shrub material. I did provide the commission with the application that was given to us, our staff report, and an old plan of the property, just so everyone was aware of the dimensions of the property, where the house is compared to property lines and whatnot. So this time I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. And your original recommendation was a positive, correct?
Our original recommendation was a positive simply due to the amount of vegetation proposed to be planted. Again, it's not mitigation, not restoration. It is meant to replace plentifully what is proposed to be removed. Considering the amount, it's typically something that we see conditioned, but given the circumstances, we wanted to approach the board under an RDA and see what everyone's thoughts were.
All right, so we were given the opportunity to go out and visit the site ourselves. So first, I'm going to ask the homeowner if there's anything you'd like to say at this time, then we'll go to commissioner comments. Mr. Magazanik.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. As I expressed last time, it's really not our intention to destroy the property in any way. We simply have 11 trees which are in severe distress. Hopefully the commission had an opportunity to review those. I am aware of the situation that we're trying, how we're trying to do this, but would really appreciate the board's consideration to allow us to do it with the proposed replanting of the area and beyond, rather than move forward, would have to do a notice of intent, et cetera. Would be greatly appreciated.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner comments or questions? Betsy.
I have no comments. Thanks.
Okay. Courtney.
I unfortunately didn't get a chance to get out to the site, so I probably shouldn't comment beyond the fact that if it's a scope of work deal as much as anything, and so we normally require a notice for this. But if the rest of the commission who were there feels like this isn't mitigating situation, I'm fine with it.
Okay, fair enough. I just have a dumb question for the homeowner. You're taking 11 down. Why not all 12?
I believe there are only 11. If there are 12, we would be taking 12. But I believe when Josh and I were out there on the property together, we counted 11.
Okay. All right. I don't have a problem with doing this under an RDA myself. That's just my opinion. Kevin?
I guess unfortunately, I went out to the site, assuming I got to the right site. One Massasoit out in whatchamacallit, that area.
Teton.
It seems like an awful lot of work in a very small area. And just as the construction of it, more the rebuilding of it bothers me. But if the rest of the board feels comfortable with it, I'm not going to object.
Okay, it is a tight spot, no question. Melissa?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm sort of leaning towards Kevin's opinion. It's awfully close to the water there, and I know that they'll need some kind of, straw rolls and things like that. But if I may, I'd like to ask Alyssa about you saw some restoration plantings. Are you comfortable with the actual choice of restoration, the species that were chosen?
I don't believe any species were currently proposed. It was more of a conceptual design at the moment. There are times where proposals are put forward through notices of intent and the deliberation of species is determined with staff at a later date. I think before the homeowner had put every piece of thought into this, they wanted to see what the board's opinion was and if some of this was even possible. Definitely the species would reflect the typical mitigation restoration species that the board likes to see. We would encourage them to be planted, I guess at the board's discretion, either 3 feet on center or 4 feet on center. And we would certainly stick with the 2 or 3 gallon size for the shrub material. And usually for trees, I think we see that 1.5 inch-ish caliper for trees. So that's something that we would advocate for as well. And it definitely is a tight site, which is why I submitted the plan to you guys, just so you could see the dimensions of the site and kind of approximately where they would go. It would fill up that whole back corner essentially with plantings.
Yeah, and
Which is
so
good.
are you comfortable then with you mentioned that they didn't actually commit to any, but we're not talking hydrangeas and things like that back there. We're talking.
No. It would be your typical bayberry, viburnum, clethra, those types of things. We would definitely stick with what the board typically approves.
Okay, so one last question for you, Alyssa. If the homeowner had, if the applicant had proposed removing half the trees, would this have also received a positive for us to discuss over, or do you think it would have floated?
I think if it was a proposal for maybe half the trees, there could have been a different discussion had. That was a question in the beginning because some of the trees are clearly dying and or dead. Our thought was, why not thin them out and try to let the other ones grow? But I think they've grown together for so long, I would be concerned that the ones left may be structurally damaged. We might find out later on in a big storm that they're just weak. It seems like whatever's harming one will likely be harming the other in the long run. And again, this is a proposal. If this was to be confirmed as a positive by the board, perhaps that could be a next step, taking down some, seeing how they do. And if it doesn't work, come back with another proposal. They're all options.
Okay.
If I may, oops, I'm sorry.
It's okay. One last question for our staff. If you were to work with the homeowner, would you also direct them towards the straw rolls and things like that?
Absolutely. We would want to have proper erosion control on site. And as you saw with the plan submitted, their property does end prior to the start of the pond. That is a paper road there. So we would want to make sure that everything planted is on this property. And there should be proper erosion control as we would see with typical planting projects.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll come back to you. Steve?
Thanks. I agree with your comments, Mr. Chairman. And it appears we can, Melissa could arrange all of this without going through the process.
Yeah, that's the only problem is conditioning and such. All right, Courtney?
I've been listening to the dialogue. And we, years and years ago, some of us have been on the commission a while, used to have an old and rather unscientific rule of thumb that if an RDA took more than 5 minutes of discussion, then it probably should be a notice. Now, that's not a rationale, and I'm in this case to recommend it. I don't feel in this situation that this is a if it were to go to a notice, that this is not a very difficult notice to have. It's not a difficult notice to prepare, nor is it a difficult notice for this commission to properly condition and have the thing thought out and put on the deed and all of that. And so, as I sit here and listen to this, much as I appreciate that the applicant is trying to facilitate the process, I think in the long run, to be consistent with our policies and our practices, I think this really should go to a notice of intent, and therefore I would support staff's initial positive.
All right, Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm tending to lean in Courtney's direction also because I know that when we have RDAs, we don't have compliance reports and things that come along with plantings, etc. And I think I'd just like to see this be perpetuated as opposed to, we've had some difficulty with some properties, and it's nothing personal to the applicant, against the applicant, but yeah, there's just enough going on here that I think I'd like to see have it go through a stamp motion.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concerns was the difficulty of doing the work on that particular site. It seems as though the applicant is quite sincere in this, and also that the amount of reconstruction, if you will, would not be very extensive. So on that basis, I would have to think more carefully how we would vote, and might change how I initially feel about it. So I'm going to delay the decision until the last second. Thank you.
All right. Betsy?
I don't have a problem with an RDA on this one. I think the work can be done quickly and clearly without much of a problem.
All right. Jen, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Bergeron, anything to add?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so procedurally, what we're looking for is a motion and a second on if we want to go with the initial positive determination, or if somebody wants to make a motion for a negative determination. And so that's what we're looking for.
I'll make a motion for a negative determination.
Second, O'Brien.
Is everybody clear on what we're going to vote on?
No,
We're going to vote. Steve, I'm sorry.
no, please go ahead. A negative determination is we do not accept the staff's recommendation.
That's
Wow.
correct. It means he can go ahead and do the work.
Sounds kind of negative, but yes.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to issue a negative determination. Maury, I'm not going to let you vote because you just got in. Sorry, nothing personal. All right. Again, motion and a second for a negative determination. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, no.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Fairchild, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
All right. 5-1, the motion passes. We have issued a negative determination.
So, sir, that means
Thank you, Mr.
we can proceed
Magaziner.
with the project.
Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate the board's time today.
All right. Next one up has been previously continued. This brings us to requests for request for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Michael Ryan, 140 Associates Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconstruct a detached garage, install a pool with a patio, fence, cabana, and rinse station. Reconfigure the driveway, install mitigation and restoration plantings, and reconstruct the front landing. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I promoted Mike Borselli and Angela Tanner up to present their project. Mike, Angela, is anybody else I'm promoting up? I see other members of Crawford here. Am I
Jen is
promoting-
also here.
You want me to promote Jen?
She
Okay,
can- Yeah, she can also be involved.
okay. Mike, anyone else?
No.
Okay,
Mr. Borselli, you're up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioners, for the record, Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant along with Angela Tanner and Jen Crawford of Crawford Land Management. And with your permission, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
I am showing you a plan of existing conditions for the property at 140 Associates Road. The property contains a residence, a driveway, typical landscape features, a detached garage. It has frontage on West Falmouth Harbor. The wetland resources nearby to the project include a salt marsh down by the shore. There's a bordering vegetated wetland that has been flagged and surveyed, and it was actually reviewed by your staff under a previous application. And it is shown with the adjustments that were requested at that time. In addition, there are some areas on the property that we've identified as coastal banks because they meet the definition of coastal bank, and they're shaded in yellow. By meeting the definition, I mean they meet the standards found at the DEP policy 92-1, which says if the land is sloping at a slope of 10-1 or steeper and also within land subject to coastal storm flowage, then it is in fact a coastal bank. So these shaded areas on the plan were identified as coastal banks and previously reviewed by this commission. These small bands, if you will, are just steeper than 10-1, and they are probably created at the time the property was developed in the grading of the driveway and the yard grading. This larger one is a slope that is steeper than 10-1, and because the landform slopes down from Associates Road. So we've identified that in the boundary to the edges of that coastal bank as well. The property is also located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The projects are within an AE 17. The boundary is shown in blue. A little bit of it is in AE 18, which is in common with the blue line on the seaward side. We've also shown the associated no disturbance zone A from the bordering vegetated wetland in the outer buffer zone B, both which are 50 feet. I will now share the proposed plan with you. The proposed project includes a reconstruction of the driveway. We'll zoom in on that a little bit. A reconstruction of the existing garage. The existing garage, for reference, is shown in red. The proposed garage is shown in a bolder black pen. The construction of a pool and the appurtenances to the pool, which include a cabana at the back of the garage, a rinse station, and the pool equipment. There's some regrading, and there's a very low profile landscape wall, less than 3 feet tall. It's actually like about 2 feet tall, and some landscape stepping stones to make way from the driveway to the house and from the pool area to the house. All of the proposed activities are located in the outer buffer zone B of the bordering vegetated wetland. And they're also within the outer buffer zone B of a coastal bank. When it comes to the larger shaded yellow area, but these small finger-like projection regradings on the sides of the driveway where we're basically on them. So for the purposes of mitigation planting analysis, all increases in impervious surfaces were calculated on the basis of a 2-to-1 ratio. And we submitted with the application the typical way we show existing impervious surfaces in the outer buffer zone B. Everything's in the B, so it's this orange color. That's the existing condition. It's just over 5,600 square feet. And in the proposed condition, we've done the same thing in orange as well. And in the proposed condition, it's about 7,700 square feet. So there's an increase of about 2,000, just over 2,000 square feet, which means we're required to provide a 2-to-1 ratio, which means 4,000 square feet of mitigation planting. We show it on our plan in green as 4,300 square feet of mitigation. So we're providing a little bit more than it is required. The details about what the plant material is are outlined on the plans by Crawford Land Management. There's also associated with the project some tree removal. If you've been to the site, you would have noticed that there's a grove of tightly planted cedars just behind the existing garage. They're very tightly planted together. They've grown together. They have vines growing in them. They're stressed. They're pretty much not in the best shape. And the majority of the trees that we're proposing to remove are clustered in this location. There are some others. There's a total I believe it's 24 total trees that are in this area in and around the driveway. They're easier to see on the existing plan, which is here. right adjacent to the driveway, right behind the existing garage. And some of them are inside the island of the existing driveway or right directly adjacent to it. The plan for the project includes mitigation of the tree removal as well, and that's spelled out on the plans by Crawford Land Management. And I'm going to turn it over in a minute to Angela to go over her plans because they also include some buffer restoration, and they go into more detail on the mitigation planting and the tree mitigation. But I did want to point out a few comments that were made in the staff report that we received yesterday that are pertinent to my work. And they include a reference to there was no recent cutting of the vista, but it appears historically there might have been some pruning done over the years to improve vistas. And the staff comments that there shouldn't be any more cutting, and that's obvious. But if there were a proposal for vista pruning in the future, we could come back either as an amendment or as a new application. I just wanted to point out that the owners, the Ryans, are recent property owners and have not done any vista pruning or cutting of vegetation. It's older when it comes in the areas referenced in the staff report. There was a question about how much mitigation is proposed because evidently my plan and the plan by Crawford Land Management are inconsistent by a small amount, but they are inconsistent. The plan of record for the mitigation proposed would be my plan, which proposes the 4,300, and the Crawford Land Management plan can be adjusted in their notes to reflect that. There's a comment about the coastal banks and the fact that there are no buffers shown to those. We can add the buffers to the plan. It's a 100 foot in this case, so the 100-foot buffer from these red lines, which are the tops of the coastal banks, would be off the lot, but I'm happy to show them on the plan. There was a comment about the existing dock, which is down here. And there is a Chapter 91 plan, and the staff asked us to provide a copy of the Chapter 91 plan. And there was a comment about it may not be consistent with the Chapter 91 plan, but we could look at that together with staff. There's a comment about showing the existing path to the water. That the existing path to the water does show in the Crawford Land Management plan, and there's no proposed path. The existing path is proposed to remain and continue to be used. And my final comment in response to staff comments was about the kayaks that are on the beach. The comment says there's kayaks and other vessels located on the seaward end of the path along the beach. It seems that there would be a benefit to a proposed kayak rack to more environmentally sensitively store the kayaks. So I'm going to speak to my client about that, and there would either be a plan to propose a kayak rack or the kayaks would have to be stored in the upland. And I think that sums up my presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Crawford Land Management, and I'm going to unshare my screen, and then I'm available for questions.
Thanks, Mike. Angela?
Hi, this is Angela Tanner from Genic Studio, Crawford Land Management. Can I please share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you see the plan with the blue, green, and orangish color on it?
Yes.
So this plan, because the main planting landscape plan has a lot of plants and a lot of different types of categories on it. We also created a diagram in color called the mitigation restoration diagram, which is a little easier to see which areas are what. And as Mike mentioned, our mitigation is off a little bit. We recalculated, we redesigned this a few times and the calculations changed and we just missed signals at the end apparently. So we can definitely update our plan to show the correct mitigation to match Mike's plan. And you can see, I'll zoom in a little bit. This is a simplified version of the plan. This is the mitigation area here. We have this green area down here is the existing marsh area. That is the area of the site that is mostly intact native plantings. So we're not proposing to do anything there. The blue areas are areas that have been heavily invaded by invasive vegetation. There are a lot of trees in some of the areas. This larger area here is a woodland canopy of mostly sassafras. And it's really the shrubs and understory that the majority of it is honeysuckle and some other species which are listed in the land management plan. And so we are proposing that those areas could be restored optionally. I know one of the comments from the staff was that they would, if we did this restoration, it would be all or nothing. So we either restore all of it or we don't restore all of it. And so one thing that I would like to discuss is that maybe we can break those areas up into 2 or 3 sections so that, for instance, this isolated area over here may be restored while and maybe some of this area over here so that the new plantings could be protected. But as time and budget allows, perhaps the third section may not be restored. If we could separate that so that it's not an all or nothing, that would be our request. You can see the purple areas are areas mostly within the driveway and the pool area around the house. Those are proposed as ornamental garden beds. And then the orange areas are areas where we are filling in with native shrubs and additional trees. There's actually additional trees throughout the entire property, but the majority of the shrubs that we're offering to help replace some of the tree material that's coming out. We are currently, we have 24 trees that are proposed to be removed. We have proposed to plant an additional 24 trees, an additional 114 woody shrubs in addition to the mitigation plantings, which includes 500 shrubs and 4 trees. And so you can see on this planting plan here, all of the tree symbols with the pluses on them are our proposed trees. We have packed them in at the edge of the woodland here and along this street area and along the property line in here. And we, I'm trying to think what the other, so these 4 trees here are the mitigation planting trees. Some of the other things that the staff had mentioned that I just wanted to quickly address. One is the question of the knotweed. So we had previously submitted an RDA to treat the knotweed on the property because knotweed, it has a very sensitive schedule as to when you can treat it. And we really wanted to get in there in the fall and get 1 round of treatment in, knowing that this whole area was going to be torn up eventually for construction. So the area that is currently knotweed is the area that surrounds the existing garage. And so that has already been treated. We definitely do intend to continue treating that. There's a note here that says invasive vegetation to be managed, and there's additional notes in the land management plan that talk about the knotweed management piece of it. If we need to add further clarification to that, we certainly can. Just let us know what you need, but that is definitely part of the proposal, and we do intend on continuing to do that. I think that basically covers everything that we have proposed. If you have other questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Angela. Stop sharing. Angela, can you stop sharing, please?
Oh, sure.
All right. Jen, do you want to start?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions. Mike, when you said that you'll add the buffers for the coastal banks, but that they're 100-foot buffers, why are you calling them 100-foot buffer when one of them is within 100 feet of the wetland area?
My reading of FWR 10.185.
Hang on, let me get there.
That outlines the various buffer widths says it just talks about the no disturbance zone A buffer widths. And FWR 10.1854 says the width of the no disturbance zone A shall be 25 feet for a non-eroding coastal bank, not in a velocity zone, with a slope greater than 4:1 and not adjacent to another wetland resource. And it's always been my understanding and applied to other projects that we have the case where we're non-eroding, we're not in a velocity zone, but our slope is flatter than, not as steep as 4:1, and it's not adjacent to another wetland resource, but it is within 100 feet of another coastal resource, in that case, the BVW. So in that case, the A zone 0, which means A plus B always equal 100, therefore B equals 100. So it's all a B. It's similar to the one that's 2 houses down on Associates Road that proposed a brand new house.
Okay. And Mike, when we cited the septic system, you had made a compelling argument about saving the cedars in the driveway for citing the septic where you cited it. Now you're putting the pool there. Can you explain the difference of opinion between the discussion we had on site? And I can pull Mark Kay into this discussion as well, because he was with us. You know, you made a kind of an impassioned plea about the cedars in the driveway, about needing to cite the septic in the front of the house, because we kept asking you to cite it in the driveway. And, you know, so we, fine, put it in the front of the house where the bank was, and now the pool's going where all these cedars are. Can you explain how that kind of changed?
Well, I don't know that's my recollection. I mean, I think I made arguments at the time.
I can bring Mark in.
Sure. So at the time we were contemplating a new septic system. We weren't formulating a plan for a master plan. There were ideas and plans to put a pool in, but the pool at the time, the concept for the pool was to place it between the house and the BVW. So at the time that we were wanting to upgrade the septic system, on-site discussions with staff, including Mark, we talked about the cedar trees and we were trying to make the best decision on its location. And at that time, we said, well, we don't have to cut the cedar trees and go under the driveway if we put the septic in front of the house. And we were actually a little bit further from the BVW if we put it between the house and the street instead of under the driveway. So on balance, it seemed to make sense. Now, fast forward to now, and the plans for the pool location changed. There was always a plan to rebuild the garage, but it hadn't been designed yet. In the master plan just evolved to include a better location for the pool, which would have been further from the BVW than it was originally proposed. So the pool could have still been built between the house and the BVW,
Okay.
but a decision was made that on balance, the plan worked better to do it where we're proposing it now. So it wasn't, I don't know if I'd characterize it as a compelling argument. I was probably weighing the pros and cons at the time, but the project evolved. And so now we're where we are, and this is what we're proposing. It wasn't any like plan to try to snooker the board or anything. These are all within a B zone, by the way. They're not in an A zone, and the regulations allow for removing the trees as long as you mitigate for them. And they're
No, I'm just going on our
there was no,
prior
like,
discussion.
there was no like master plan to try to deceive anybody.
Well, Mike, you also know that the pool would never be able to be sited between the house and the BVW because it would have been in the zone A of the BVW. And you can't move closer than the present primary structure. So
I can show you where it was going to be. I'll share my screen if I could. The original, the plan was to tuck it in right here.
okay.
And it would have been closer than the primary structure because that would have been the leading edge. So the idea was to put it here and actually wrap around this side, but it did, in the end, with the architectural design and the landscape design, a decision was made to put it here instead. So
Okay.
we think that overall it's a better plan for everyone, and for the environment.
Okay, well, going forward, we want to be able to make sure that the conversations that we have, we're able to trust everybody involved so that we don't have a conversation, on a project 6 months ago, and then all of a sudden something changes. So we were just a little confused by all of a sudden the pool being where these cedars had to remain.
Yeah, I think it wasn't like all of a sudden, it just evolved as the plan developed over several months.
Okay.
'Cause I agree that we did talk about the cedar trees at that time.
Thank you. So I'm going to switch to Angela, and I'm going to go back to the knotweed, because that's another concern we have on this project, is that when the staff allowed you to treat the knotweed, it was with the assurance that that area was going to be replanted. And now it seems that you're using that area not to restore the knotweed that was removed, but that you're actually utilizing that area as a replacement area for additional vegetation you're taking out around the property. Can you explain that, please?
I did not understand that that's what you meant by the comment. I thought you thought that we were making it optional.
I think the knotweed replacement was optional.
I thought that the staff comment was implying that our plan shows it as optional. And so I wanted to clarify that it's not optional, but what you're actually commenting on is something different, that it should be a separate, calculated separately from tree replacement.
Yes, that's
Okay.
exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, so
Because
that's
it was
not,
yeah,
that we did not have that on our radar. We knew that all of that area was going to get restored. But as far as keeping those calculations separately, we didn't consider that. So I
if
guess,
you can break those apart, that would be,
yeah, okay.
that would be, because again, just as I said to Mike, we're attempting to work with the engineering community, We're
Mhm.
allowing things to go forward with assurances and statements that are made. And we want to make sure that,
Mhm. Okay,
you know,
we can figure out how
we all
to.
move forward in a trusting way.
Okay.
Thank you. And Angela, when you said that that, and I understand completely that these plans go through multiple versions and everything. When you said that, and correct me if I use the wrong language, something was missed, or when, Mike's calculation for mitigation is slightly different than your calculation, does that mean the number's just going to change, or are we going to see the area on the plan change as well? What is wrong, the area that's shown on the plan or the actual numerical value?
Both. The shaded area that's on Mike's plan, we will match that, which
Okay.
is the proper square footage from what he proposed.
Oh yeah, I see it.
So we just need to
wings up
make our
there.
plan match that.
Okay, that would be great. And if we could just remove that knotweed area from the tree replacement and move that around, that would be helpful.
Okay.
And if you wanted to, and I understand it's a big job, the big blue block area, that's that optional mitigation. If you wanted to, I think the concern that we have is things will be removed but not replaced. We don't
Absolutely.
know how much is going to be removed and then how much is going to be replaced. So if you could break that apart into maybe different phases,
Yes.
that would give the board a little more assurance that if.
Right. We can say, okay, they're going to do phase 1 and 2, and they're not going to do phase
Correct.
3.
And I think that would give us a little bit more assurance that things
Okay.
will be done and completed. Now, one thing I also have, Angela, is in that optional restoration area, there's natives in there, correct?
Yeah, I would say, most of the canopy, I believe all of the canopy, I don't think we saw any invasive trees in there. The canopy is definitely native. The understory, I would say, is 75% invaded. A lot of the edges have some native stuff at the edges, but along the pathway, and I mean, it's very much honeysuckle in there. There are some other things, but I would say 75% would be approximate.
Okay, so to that point, I think when, and Alyssa can correct me if I'm wrong, I think when she calculated out the number of species in the optional area was much less than we would see even at a 4 to 5 foot on center planting.
Mhm.
And Alyssa can speak to more of that because I think she has the numbers right in front of her. She's nodding, so yeah. So she has those numbers, and I think we were just concerned with the quantity of what was going back in that area. So if you could take a look at that as well,
Okay.
that would be great. And other than that, Mike, the garage, is there going to be another bedroom on it, which is why we put this, I think it was a 6-bedroom D-night when we replaced the septic?
Yes, we did a
Or we
D.
went from a 4 to a 5 or a 5
We
to a
went
6?
up by 1 bedroom, yes, so that's why we mitigated that by proposing a denitrifying septic system.
Okay, so there is going to be a bedroom in the garage for the existing septic system to accommodate.
Yes,
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify that because we were like, so is there a bedroom up there or not?
yes, there's a room that would meet the definition of a
Definition of a
bedroom.
bedroom, whether it's used as a bedroom or not, it's
Right.
just,
The
okay.
potential's there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We just wanted to clarify and confirm for the board that there would be a room considered a bedroom in the garage, and that's where that 6th bedroom is for that septic that went in, and it's a D-night, correct?
Yes, that's installed and it was installed this summer.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that is all I have. And Mike, thank you for showing me where you were previously going to put the pool, or were thinking of it. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Ms. Bergeron,
Thank you. Yes, to go off what Jen said, I do have the numbers right in front of me. Just used our handy dandy calculator just to kind of get an idea of what we would expect. I did a 5 foot on center calculation for the blue area. It came up with about 900 shrubs. I guess if about a quarter of it is naturalized, you can think we're still short a couple hundred plantings. We didn't have any concerns really with the species being proposed. We just might need a bit more of a quantity if the board wants to see them at a 4 or 5 foot on center. But I guess that would also take into consideration the tree canopy that exists in the area. So perhaps you guys can either elaborate on that or mull it over.
Okay, we can try to come up with some kind of formula. We tend to space things a little further apart than you guys do, knowing that a lot of these shrubs get larger than 5 feet. But I'm sure we can figure out somewhere to go to make everyone happy.
Okay, thank you. I did have one other comment. I just had concerns with some of the mitigation being proposed in the funky, swirly BBW. Though I wasn't a part of those conversations at the time, at the beginning of last year, there were several staff visits made to the site in order to delineate where that BBW was. For those who went out there, it's clearly been mowed for many, many years. It's very wet, wants to grow into a wetland. So I think as staff, our assumption was that area was to be allowed to regrow and become a wetland and not continue to be mowed. I think planting it is a great idea. I'm just not sure that using that area as to double as mitigation, being a resource area would be entirely appropriate, but that would be up to the commission. And thank you to both of you for asking our plethora of questions. My apologies for the late report yesterday. Thank you.
Welcome. Mr. Chairman, if I could add one more thing, with regard to the suggestion that, we might have misled with the cedar trees and all that, my credibility is at stake, and I would never mislead the commission. I've been doing this for over 30 years. In fact, we met with staff pre-filing and went over the plan, and that never came up. But I know there was we threw a lot at them, but on these types of projects, it's good to have some feedback from the staff. And we met with Jen and Alyssa in their office, Angela and I, and went over the plans. And maybe if we had talked about that suggestion of us not being forthright on the cedars might not have come up.
Wasn't that it was just, I just needed clarification, Mike. So, because we did have this, I remember specifically Mark and I being out there with you on site, looking at the different areas for the septic, because there was concern that the septic was going, quote unquote, into a coastal bank, and where there are other places on site to place it. So we just want to make sure that, going forward, that everybody's on the same page. I understand plans evolve.
Okay.
And, this is a busy plan. And, when we do have the time to kind of think about it and look back and look at the old filings and kind of compare our notes from the old files, that's when we start thinking about these things. So I understand they evolve. I just wanted clarification on, it seemed that it was really adamant that it not go into the driveway at that time. And one of those reasons was the cedar trees. I just needed clarification on that.
all right. Anything else? All right. Commissioner comments. Kevin, we're going to start with you. You're in the hot seat.
I'm just wondering if the differences between, if you'll forgive the language, the two sides are sufficient that the consultant might want to request a continuance.
Oh, I think there's going to be a continuance, Kevin. I think Angela wants time we need some clarification on the tree replacement area and breaking that out. And I think they want to be able to look at the optional thing and kind of come up with a phasing plan for that. And then there does need to be some corrections done to the plan. So both the site plan and the restoration mitigation plan match. So there's definitely going to be a continuance.
Thank you very much. I'm content. Thank you.
Maury?
Well, I'm glad to see the house wasn't torn down. That's a very big plus. So there are a couple things. The BBW that has been mowed, I really don't think we should be using that as mitigation. So I'm hoping with all the very big open areas in your optional restoration blue area, that they're big, huge, I mean, I know you like to have more space, but there's a lot of open area underneath there that maybe we could add it into there. And Alyssa was correct, we need to beef that up a little bit. And I'd like to see some more trees. You're taking down over 150 plus caliper inches, not counting the 30-inch damaged tree up by the road. And you're only giving back roughly 45 caliper inches. And it is a nice, you have enough room to not block the vista. And I would just like to see more trees planted from what you took down. And I think you've done a pretty good job of it, but I think we need to add some more. And what is the distance, Mike, from the Acer rubrums that are being planted up by the road to the septic system? Because they're very invasive into leach fields.
I don't have Angela's plan in a place I can.
Would you know, Angela?
I don't know offhand what the distance is. Yeah, they're pretty close. We actually originally had oaks in there. We had switched it due to client preference. If we could look at doing a different species there than the Acer rubrum.
Weren't there cedars there originally?
Jen? I don't think there's anything there right now.
Well, I know there isn't anything there now because that was when the septic system got put in. There were trees there, and that's why they didn't want to put. I'm just saying that as a septic installer, putting any large tree that wants to be inside your leach field is really not a good idea. You might want to think about something a little less water hungry in that area, and that will destroy that septic system.
Mm-hmm.
And not
we can
in a very
definitely
long time,
switch
because they're going to be hungry for water, and that's really good food fed water there.
But
in that
nitrogen.
leach field.
Oh, no nitrogen. It's the D-night.
Well, they'll denight it for you.
We can
and-
definitely look into that.
Yeah, I was concerned about that. Not that really has, well, it does, because if the septic system fails, then it's not gonna denight. And let's see, the knotweed. I'm a little concerned about that not being eradicated before you start grubbing around in there, because I just don't want it to be moving around. Maybe are you gonna remove that dirt? I mean, usually it's 2 to 3 years to eradicate knotweed. So you're planning, I'm sure, not to wait 2 to 3 years to do this project. Any idea how you're going to approach that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could write
Maybe a membrane? That the soils, that you're not going to be introducing any of that soil on the site, because if you don't eradicate that, it's
I think whoever is doing the site work for the driveway and the building, we're going to have to write in some specs about that. But ultimately, I mean, there is knotweed. I mean, there's knotweed in the garage.
Oh, I know.
So there is area in here that the soil is going to be disturbed. Obviously, the area that's still going to be planted, we would try to leave that intact. But the areas that are going to be hardscape are going to be dug up. So we'll just have to be clear about where that soil gets disposed of.
Because that's actually one of the bigger concerns I had besides the 150 caliper inches gone and only 45 coming back. Actually, it's almost 200 inches gone, counting the 30-inch damaged tree. And then, let's see. I think that was it. Thank you very much, but I hope you listen strongly to the staff recommendations as well. Thank you.
A follow-up, Mr. Chairman, on the tree mitigation. I'm sure everyone's aware, but I'm just going to say it anyway. The regs do allow for other shrub mitigation when there's heavily wooded areas. I agree with Maury that maybe we could look at adding some more trees, but we're adding a lot more shrubs over and above the mitigation requirement to offset it. And you have the ability to decide if there's lots that have a lot of trees on them, if you can do shrub mitigation as a substitute. That all said, we are gonna, I'm sure we'll probably come back with some more trees, but we did consider that. We had a lot of discussions about how to handle that. And we expected comments like that, and we're gonna look into it.
Thank you. Only because the largest biomass of trees is what you're going to remove every bit of it, of existing. You're going to be putting back, but they're certainly not going to be 150 caliper inches.
I did want to add one more comment about the UVW as part of the mitigation. The way that we looked at it as a restoration piece was that seemed logically the first place that we would want to replant. When you look back at the photographs of this site going back, I think as far as 95 was as far as I could get with a clear picture. It's clearly been mowed that whole time. Whether it should have been mowed or not is another question, but it's been historically mowed for so long. It seems to us that's the first logical place that we would start mitigation. So I'm not really, I guess I don't understand why that shouldn't be counted. Because if we don't count it towards mitigation, then it's just this hole that's left, and we're planting everything else around it. That was my take on it.
I thought more that we were going to restore it and not use that area as mitigation. It would be restoration, but that's for discussion. There's a lot of other people. Thank you.
All right. Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will continue on that discussion about the BUW there. Because I walked into the property and the first thing I saw was, oh, look at that, mowed wetland, mowed marsh, mowed whatever it is there. And when I saw that you were proposing to count replanting that as mitigation, I thought they can't do that because that could actually be, that could come up to us as an enforcement order, that is as opposed to mitigation, for a completely different project. So I think it should be restored. And I don't think those numbers should count towards mitigation for the rest of the project. I think I'm pretty clear on that. And, and actually at first I was wondering, gee, why would you put anything in there? You put something around it to keep people from going in there, but whatever it is, it needs to be rehabilitated and restored somehow or another. So thanks for working on that and not counting it towards your total numbers there. I have some questions about the trees. The 30-inch tree that's quote damaged and to be removed. I mean, Maureen mentions that it's damaged. You mentioned that it's damaged, but how is it damaged? It looked like a very healthy tree to me, but then again, it's wintertime, so I can't tell. Could somebody explain what's wrong with the tree? Why it really has to come down? Because it looked like a beautiful tree to me.
That was a tree that was originally proposed to be removed when they did the septic. So we had left it on the plan that way. I don't know if I can tell you specifics, but that whole area was regraded. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible we can leave it in place. It's not affecting, I mean, it's not really affecting anything.
Yeah, it's not in the way of the driveway. I mean, it looked perfectly healthy to me, but it was really mushy over there, shall I say. Or it wasn't
I mean,
swampy at all.
the new grading, I mean, it does come right up to it for the septic and the driveway. So, and it's surrounded on the other side by the street. So I just don't know long-term what its prospects are.
Well,
We
if-
can, we
Mike?
can take a look at that and reevaluate it, and we can leave it in place if it's not part of the project. And you're not concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's so rare to see a tree that large, you know, in town still going. It could be, you know, a mother tree or something like that. And then on the other side of where, of the current driveway, on the plans, it mentions 3 oaks, an 18-inch oak and 2 15-inch oaks. And I only saw 2 oaks there. I saw what I'd call an 18-inch oak. And then I saw something that looked like it was once a double-trunked oak, but one of them is gone. It's obviously cut down, removed. And I'm wondering if you were counting that as 2 15-inch oaks, or what was the deal with that oak? It was split in half at the end of the driveway, the current driveway.
I'm gonna have
It's
to share my
basically-
screen to get clarification.
It's basically right above the word damaged.
Are you on my plan?
Yeah, okay. No, actually, I'm on the other plan, but I see your plan. So you see 15-inch oaks, it says,
In this
those
18
two. And the 18-inch one, but the 15-inch oaks are actually, it's like one tree with double trunk type
Mhm.
thing.
I think when
And
we
the-
serve, sometimes the surveyor, you know, he sees 2 massive trunks, he says 15-inch oaks when it's really one tree with 2 massive trunks.
Yeah, but the second massive trunk, the one that's right on the road line there is cut down, has been cut down. So there's actually only 2 massive trunks, one 18-inch one and one 15-inch one that has, a 1.5 foot long stub of removed oak from it. So
It might have got.
Yeah, maybe
damaged.
once-
It might have got
maybe-
damaged. It was hanging over the driveway and maybe it got damaged or wind. I'd have to talk to the owner. I don't have any. I'm sorry, I'll unshare my screen.
you know, I'm looking at your little screen there, but yeah, I'm curious about what happened to the tree, because there are not 3 trees there. There are just 2 trees there, and so that might have been a tree that was removed in an earlier project or an unpermitted project, because it's within 100 feet of a coastal bank, of several coastal banks. And I know we're having issues about that too. So I'll go on to that one, the coastal banks. The engineer said that the little rounded coastal bank around the driveway seems to be detritus from creating the driveway. And I'm wondering, does anyone have any proof otherwise? I mean, are we just going to go by the engineer's words on that? I guess that's a question for Jen or Alyssa. Is there a way to see if that's actually a real coastal bank, or is that just leftovers from building the driveway? Because
I
the
mean,
pool
we would
is
have
planned
to
to
go back to when the house was built, and I have no idea if we have plans from when the house was built. I mean, we can look.
But I mean, so there's no
Take
way
a
to like
look,
dig into
Melissa.
it to see what was there.
Maury, do you have any idea how long this house has been there?
Yeah, about
1902.
1910,
Oh, okay.
1910, 1920.
Then we might not have a plan.
Yeah.
Melissa, we'll look and see what we have. I mean, they're the little landforms that are there. The way the site is, the soil had to go somewhere. Sometimes
Yeah, I know.
it's kind of apparent.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, it's awfully cheeky to design a pool to remove a coastal bank. You know,
Well,
We find these little landforms. I mean,
Yeah.
on properties, sometimes we have these little mounds on properties, and we've always guided the engineering community to not to ignore them, but to, you know, be upfront, which Mike has done. Tell us they're there, shade them, you know, and it's on the applicant to overcome the presumption that this little landform is not significant to storm damage and flood control. It's the guidance we've always given them.
Yeah, we use the term fragmented and sometimes that's not looked favorably, but it's a little embankment less than a foot tall. I mean, these little embank in front of Papagino's on Davis Straits, it's in a flood zone. That's a coastal bank. I mean, that's what we're talking about. So the performance standard is to they serve the function of storm damage prevention and flood control, if anything. And I don't even think they do that because they're so small. The big one does because it's a vertical buffer, but there's no interest to protect here. They don't serve any function, but out of respect for the definition of a coastal bank, we showed them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a little disconcerting, seeing projects that are saying, well, we're going to remove a coastal bank now. And I mean, on the property thinking, this doesn't really look like one, but does it serve a purpose?
And
I
that's when
tried
it's
not to
motivating.
call it one, but Mark and Jen sort of strong on me into calling it a coastal bank.
Yeah, well,
But I mean-
I'm glad that they did. It's for the record there, and it's going to be in perpetuity in the deed that it's there. We should be mindful of it. So I'm going to move just a little further down to the, I don't know, is it to the south of that coastal bank? I don't see the directions on my maps here. I guess a little to the southwest from this coastal bank to the line of the pool patio and everything. Basically, right at the corner of the pool, there's a stake. Not the stake, not the little flag that's in the driveway, but the other one that's across from it, where on, I guess on Angela's plan, it says plus 10.5. There's a big old cedar tree there, and it's not listed here as being removed, and it's not listed here as staying. And I'd say I first wrote down 18 inches with a question mark, and then I put down like 28 inches or 24 inches with a question mark. And I'm wondering, I mean, there were several trees on the property that I was looking at that I couldn't find on the plan here. So there was that huge cedar tree right at the corner of where the pool is going in. And then also just below it, where if you were to follow where the fence is going to go around the pool, you see the ornamental planting row, and then there's a little walkway and the little planting square next to the pool equipment. Basically, at the corner of that planting square, there's another large tree that another large cedar, and I have it listed here as cedar at corner of fence ? Is that staying or is that going too? I mean, there seem to be a lot of trees that are very much in the way of the plan that I can't find on this plan, and I'm concerned that they're not being accounted for or replaced with enough caliper inches to replace them. And then
We made the best effort to survey every possible tree. I mean, I guess it's conceivable we missed one or two, but
they're right next to your stakes. I mean, they're
Right.
like within arm's reach of your stakes. So, excuse me. And then, what was it? Okay. I had some questions about the footpath too. Do we know if that existing footpath is permitted? I mean, I'm guessing that it probably isn't, but
People are allowed to have a footpath.
I know. But one thing that I noticed walking down it, I mean, other than the kayaks and everything that have been pointing out in the water skis, is that it has been pruned back a lot. And I know that those are mostly invasives under there, but I would hope that the new owners of the place would learn that they're not supposed to be pruning without permission. But other than that, and then there's the fire pit. I mean, it's not in the plan here. I assume that's all staying in the that those little sitting areas are staying on the property too.
Angela, I'll defer to you on that.
The fire pit area, no, that area is getting, I mean, it's not on the plan. I'm not sure exactly where it is on the plan.
It's It's right near the red dotted line and the, what is it? One of the serviceberry bushes.
Yeah, that's all getting revegetated.
Okay. Okay, so I guess my biggest concerns are the 30-inch tree, the missing tree that's on your plan, and then the existing trees that aren't on the plan. But also then the wetland that's being mowed. I really don't see how that can count as mitigation when it really needs to be restored. And I mean, yeah, if we didn't have this project in front of us, we could be pulling an enforcement on it. So I'm just requiring them to fix it anyhow. And yeah, an idea of a kayak rack or something. I mean, there's a flooded dinghy down on the beach, and there's also a wayward paddle boat sort of in the wetland down there that's also sinking, or not sinking. It's filled with water, but on the edge of the bank there. That needs to find a place to live a little more properly. But a lot of work, a lot of plants. I love how you've got a whole section labeled as ornamental planting, and you're planting 3 ilex. It's beautiful. It's are there going to be other sort of flowery things in there too, or is it just going to be the hollies?
The ornamental planting areas.
Yeah, well, where you have the 3 huge hollies marked out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we basically didn't do a plan yet for the ornamental planting. We kind of wanted to get through this hurdle first before developing that much detail. I typically work with native plants, but the exact palette is going to, have to be figured out with the client. The hollies were actually their request. They love hollies, so.
They're nice. Okay. And they'll block the view of the pool from the road too. Okay, well, thank you. I think that's it for now. Thank you for your attention and questions.
All right, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my perspective is entirely different, but when I looked at the lot, the undeveloped lot, the portion that's all wooded is unless you look at an aerial view, you really don't appreciate it as being part of the property as a whole and in the development of this. The mowed area, I can personally attest that it's looked like that for 20 years. I can't go back any farther than that, and not aggressively mowed. It's just sort of became like that, it seems to me. But because anyway, the maintenance wasn't excessive in prior years. I understand everybody's concerned. I thought the pool coming back where it was, and I remember, the cedar tree issues, but on the balance of things, I thought this property restoration was significant improvement overall. And I'm not a plan expert, as many in our staff already are, so I'll allow them to discuss that further. But I think for what they want to do on this property, it will have a minimal environmental impact and mostly positive.
Well said. Betsy.
Well, Steve, I'm really disappointed that all those beautiful cedar trees are going to come down, because I can tell you that that's going to affect the birds that like to feed and nest in that area. That said, Maury, are you the one who counted up the caliper inches, or Mike, can you tell me how many caliper inches are being removed?
I don't have that calculation on my plan. I don't think that, Angela, did you put it on your plan? No.
Do you remember that that's the information we're supposed to get when we make a decision on these?
Yeah.
It reads inch to inch or caliper inch to caliper inch, which
Right.
means we need both
Sure.
numbers.
Understood. I can get you the information.
Okay, I'd like that for the next time, and I'm just gonna circle back quickly. I agree with you, Maury, that there should be more trees. And I definitely agree that BBW should, I think that the BBW just left alone might come back. I'm sure there's a good seed bank in it, but it shouldn't be used as mitigation. You don't have to put the plants there, put the plants somewhere else. And that's all I have.
All right. Courtney?
First of all, a comment or an observation on this mystery landform. So I'll throw out a postulation. Capricorn Island was formerly known as Hog Island, and for a good reason, because the locals used Hog Island to graze all their pigs for years and years and years. And so maybe this mystery landform is a pile of manure that was going to be used to fertilize the fields. On a more serious note, I agree with Maury and Betsy's comments that clearly there's a lot of work that the applicants need to do on the issue of trees. They have to determine caliper inches, trees that don't need to go, that were slated to go. A lot of attention given to the species that are proposed to be planted in the area of the new septic for the very reasons that Maury has suggested. You don't need the roots to destroy the septic system after you put them in. And the other thing that I would agree strongly with Maury is you really gotta really do something about that knotweed. You let that get moved around by an excavator and you're just gonna have a god-awful mess. And you should really, whatever you can do to eradicate it before you get into really doing the work, or whatever controls you have, because it is pernicious. And if you can control it, you do it right away. Those are my only comments.
So I think for the BBW, the question really is, I mean, I don't see why it can't be planted. The question is, should it count as mitigation or not? I mean, that's what I got out of all this. Mike, I have a question about the garage, and I'm really just looking for clarification.
Yes.
You're saying that it's being reconstructed. I see it as being torn down and a new one built. And I'm not saying I have a problem with it. I'm just clarifying. Is that the case?
Oh, yeah. It's a rundown garage. It's gonna be replaced with a brand new, architecturally consistent with the neighborhood garage. It's gonna be new, brand new garage. It's gonna have some space above it, and it's gonna be appurtenant to a pool. So it's gonna be a much different garage. Yes.
Okay. Again, semantics, but
Yeah,
that's what I do. Do you have a drawdown tank for the pool?
we do. We have a dry well, and it's shown.
Well, up in that lawn area?
Yes, between the pool and the turnout area for the driveway.
Oh, I see it.
6 foot diameter,
Um,
6 foot deep leaching pit.
But that's also going to control runoff from the driveway, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Jen, before we get too far, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman, but I have one additional comment. If, Angela, you're going to revise your plan to take the mitigation out of the wetlands, I know Maury made a comment about possibly using the optional restoration area to put that mitigation. And I'd just like to remind the board that you typically don't allow the removal of invasives to place mitigation in that area. So keep that in mind, Angela, that if that area is used, the staff is going to raise the raise the issue that typically the board doesn't allow an area of invasives to be removed and used as mitigation. I know Maury was just trying to be helpful. I'm just making that clarification.
That's fine. We evaluated that area hoping to find some bare areas that could be considered mitigation, but we didn't find any. So
Yeah.
we would use the lawn area.
And Mike, I just have one more question for you.
Mhm.
Did you and I visit this property even before the septic to look at that dock?
We met at one point, which is probably why you remembered this matter of we met with the owner, we walked down there, we talked about
Walk down that path.
possibly doing something different with the dock because it was permitted. So we had a conversation about it. I don't remember the particulars of it though.
Okay, I was curious if it was this same dock. I just remember going down this.
Oh, I know what the
Long
question
path.
was. It's sort of like a seasonal dock and he wanted to know if he could make it
Yeah.
permanent.
Yeah, correct. Okay, I just wanted to know if that was the same little dock structure.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other additional commissioner comments, questions? Maury?
I'm not sure if I've missed this on other plans, but I know this is going to get continued. So for the Crawford plan, that it says not for construction, issued for permitting, and the scale is variable, that I just think we need the scales to be not variable, or wherever the scales are, whatever they are, they should be told what scale is to what area. And if it's for construction, and are you going to have a construction plan?
The scales are on there. They're just on each individual plan on the sheet. So the diagram is at 1:40 and the restoration plan is at 16th scale.
Just makes it, thank you, just so it's clear. And also, like I say, if we're gonna have the contractor should also, we should have all the plans so that whatever they're doing, we know what they're doing, not that you made something up for them and made something up for us. We should all be on the same page, same plan. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. The approved plan should become the construction plan.
Mhm.
All right, Mike or Angela, do you have anything to add?
No, other than a request, when the time comes, I'm gonna request a continuance.
Now's a good time.
I would like to continue it till the 8th of February to give us time. I took notes. I think it's gonna take a site visit by Angela and I to I wanna do a walk around and check the trees in response to Commissioner Freitake's comments. And if there's a couple of the trees I missed, I'll be able to see them better now with the stakes. I'll add them to the plan. We'll determine the number in caliper inches and note that on the plan. And there's some things you wanted us to consider, like that we noted, and we're gonna consider, and we're gonna come back with a revised plan. And I think we need the time. I'll have to submit a revised plan by the 1st of February, which isn't that far away. So if Angela's available on the 8th, I'd like to continue it to the 8th.
Angela, is that going to give you enough time?
Yes, it should be enough time.
Okay. I mean, all Mike has to do is add buffers to his plan. You have all the work to do.
No, Mike has to give me,
Caliper.
Oh,
caliper
caliper inches.
inches.
Yes, he does.
And we have
So,
to find the missing trees.
Yes. Yeah, we'll
And
do
Mike-
that soon and we'll get that number squared away. And I'm gonna take a look at that 30-inch tree with Angela. And I'll talk to the owner about the trunk that was cut that Commissioner Freitake mentioned.
Not weed plan.
Okay.
Maury, thank you for raising your hand and not interrupting.
Mike, could you also put top of wall on that? I know it's only 2 foot, but still just put top of wall elevation for the final.
Sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Just a quick comment I should have included in the staff report. During the time of the dock construction, I did see that the dock pieces were allowed to be stored in an area of an old foundation, which is right by the seaward end of that path, which was all that wood everyone saw when you went out there. So while the plan is being looked at, Angela, perhaps the current homeowner should declare a space down there if they would like to continue to keep that wood in that optional restoration area. That should be called out on the plan, unless they have another idea of moving it further into the upland. Just wanted to address that before you put all the work into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
For clarification, are you basically, Mr. Chairman, if I could, are you basically saying you want an area designated for the seasonal dock storage?
Simply because there already is one. I think right now on the plan, would be proposed to be vegetated in the optional planting area. So if they want to keep that, they've been approved to keep that area to store the seasonal dock. So I'm just suggesting if that's the case, just call it out on the plan so we don't anticipate that area being planted.
Okay, thank you for
Thanks.
that.
Yeah, Mike, you weren't expecting that, were you? We're telling you to clear something.
Or not plant something.
Or not, yeah. All right. We have a request for a continuance till February 8th.
I make a motion to a continuance to February
Third,
8th.
second,
Hawks.
third, second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this till February 8th. Are there any further comments or questions? All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Hi, Todd. Aye.
Steve.
Pat and I,
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 8th. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you. Both of you.
Have a good
Night.
night.
All right. Next up are continued requests for hearing under notice of intent. First one has been previously continued. That brings us to Russell Ruza, 79 Meadow Neck Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct 2 additions, enlarge the existing deck and install mitigation plantings. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 1st.
Carla Hawks, so moved.
Third, second.
We're getting kind of busy on the 1st and the 8th, no?
Right now on the 8th, well, we don't know how many notices we're gonna have on the 8th, so the only thing we have on the 8th right now is the continued Sandpoint Shores, the continued 140 Associates, and a continued enforcement. We don't know what we're getting in for that. On the 1st right now, we have 2 continued notices already, but those are the side-by-side restorations that we'll be meeting with Teresa Sprague on, and then this one.
Okay,
And you have 3 notices for the 1st.
just throwing it out there.
Nope, I know, I'm trying to manage it.
I get it. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 1st. All right, we're gonna vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Hi, Todd. Aye.
Steve.
Pat and I,
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 1st. Next up, the continued request for hearing under an enforcement order that has been previously continued. Which brings us to orders of conditions. First up, Stephen P. Erb, CPA, Mademoiselle SARL, 64 Hinckley Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Give me a sec, Mr. Chairman. Working on it. That's just the reconstruction of the dock on Hinckley Road.
Yeah, it's the airplane house dock.
Yep.
All I had on my plan was
We didn't
sounding.
really have any questions other
No.
than they're gonna send us a plan with a PLS stamp and that no CCA materials be used, and DMF didn't have any comments.
Anybody have anything you want to see in there? Maury?
We had asked for soundings on the plan.
Okay.
That was it.
All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a
move-
motion to
Go ahead, Betsy.
issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Third, second.
All right, if there's nothing further, we'll vote. Again, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Herzog, aye.
Steve.
No,
It was unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up. Wendy Hill, 28 Drift Road, West Falmouth, Mass. And Maury is not on this quorum.
This is the invasive species removal, plan. I know there was a tremendous amount of discussion about the trees, but what we finally ended up on was that they were going to take photo points and do an inventory of the trees as they were doing the restoration. We did meet with Angela yesterday to go over the location of those photo stations, and we feel that she did a good job giving us kind of an overview of the whole property to the best that we can, using photos. So photo points, we did with the staff. And they'll be doing an inventory of the trees, as they're making their way through the property, which I think will give us a much better, idea of what's there. I do want to caution the board that when they go through to remove the invasives, it is very, very thick in there, and there could be a few casualties of trees that are just unavoidable. But I think the majority of the trees will remain. But we'll have the photo stations, and then we can compare them, and then we can also condition that when they start to go in, that Alyssa and I do a site visit with them and periodically check on the removal.
Sounds good. Thanks for that effort.
Not a problem.
Yeah, and thanks for looking into the elms, the type of elms there. We saved
Yep.
those.
Anything anybody want to see in there? All right,
No.
what are you thinking?
Mr. Chairman, if I,
Yes.
this photo documentation, or it sounds like something we should do, but if somebody could just explain what the difference between this and then other than historical views that we get from GPS, is that what we're looking for?
The problem with this site, Stephen, I can show you an aerial. The canopy is so thick. There's so many trees on that site that we can't get a good idea of individual trees. So this will allow, we're taking it from like the corners of the building, the corners of the shed, and then 2 or 3 trees that are in the cleared area, and where you take the photos from the same angle each time. So they'll do one before, one after they clear, one when they're done, and you kind of have an idea. You can see whether, this particular tree, the way it's shaped, was removed or not. Like I said, there's going to be casualties in there. The site is very, very thick. The canopy is very thick. It gives the board a little bit more assurance, and that's kind of what they came up with when the board wanted more clarity on how many trees were there and what was staying.
So it would generally be used only in cases where there were this kind of dense canopy.
We use
It
photo.
seems like a lot of effort, but
It is a big
it will be
effort.
very helpful.
It is a big
If
effort.
I
and
could
it will
finish.
help.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it helps during monitoring reports. They'll usually do a photo station on monitoring reports and take a photo at the same angle from the same station each time they submit a monitoring report. So we kind of have an idea of what's going on in the site.
To simplify, the biggest difference here is that it's from a ground perspective versus aerial.
Yeah, I just can't see the difference in the aerials. There's too many trees.
Just clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to accept this order of conditions, to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
Gladfelter.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. If there's nothing further. All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Bartel, aye.
Steve.
At night.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up. Michael and Susan Herring, 100 Waterside Drive, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, this was a BSS plan. They're proposing a new deck. They're doing an addition with the deck wrapped around it. They're relocating. I think they're removing and building a new shed, but it's going to be the same size. They're relocating their hot tub. Adding in some dry wells, doing a small amount of mitigation. I think the board had concerns with the size of the shed, so that has been shrunk during the last revised plan to reflect what's currently out there and has been out there for many, many years. I don't think there was too much heartburn with where they're relocating their hot tub. And again, they're providing mitigation for the proposed increases in impervious surface, and it's not moving any closer than the existing present primary structure. Oh, and the only special condition I have is no enclosed space under deck and additions. And then we have to make a finding on the increase of impervious surface within the V zone, which I think came out to 185 or 179, something like that. I'll get the exact number.
Maury?
There was no generator pad. I think that was not on the plan. So we told him that if he had to put one in, that he'd have to come back
Got it.
as well.
For the record, the quorum is all of us. I also note about, they'd like to use some beach grass instead of shrubs. Did we clarify that?
I think you should always, the board has always required mitigation to be shrubs, not beach grass. I
Yeah.
think it's a really dangerous precedent.
I'm not suggesting we allow it. I just have
Yeah.
a note about. Ms. Bergeron?
Yes, it was clarified on the revised plan. They are only proposing shrubs now.
Okay, I apologize then.
No worries.
All right, anything else? All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing further, we'll vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Bartel, aye.
Steve.
At night.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Daniel Celine and Chris Horiuchi, 91 Adamancet Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, this is, what am I doing? This is just to change the dock from a fixed structure to a floating structure to, because of the fluctuating water table on Coonamessett Pond.
Simple. And again, for the record, the quorum is everyone. Anybody have anything they want to throw in there? Melissa?
I think Maury had mentioned that we didn't want any lights on the dock. And,
Or did no lights or a particular lumen?
The low lumen. I think we have a
Lumen.
requirement.
the low lumen ones. And then I had a question about the ladder. I want to make sure that that will be
Yeah, I just remember that ladder not on the.
not on the pond floor.
floor. Yeah, yeah.
And there are going to be stops on the dock too to keep it.
Yeah.
That's
There was something about the ladder, making sure that didn't hit the bottom.
Yeah, Melissa just mentioned that, Courtney.
I thought it was just the stops. Missed that.
Anything else? All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Gladfelter.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. There's nothing further. All right, we're gonna vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
Right, okay.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, other business, chairman's musings. But I ask you to indulge me for 30 seconds. I gotta change my ears. All right, we good? Somebody say something.
Yeah.
Yes, we're good.
Yes.
Thank you. Rechargeable, so they die. I should have changed them a minute ago. So first point of my tirade is not stalling the meeting by changing your earbuds. No. So I just thought with the new year we should talk about some policies and procedures, and then with some of the meetings lately, we've kind of gone off the rails. So I want to point some stuff out. I'm not looking to pick on anybody. I'm not looking to cause trouble. I'm not looking to split hairs. But I have to talk about this stuff because some of it kind of drives me nuts. I think all in all, our meetings go pretty good. We're pretty efficient. Having said that, I think there's some room for improvement. So I got a couple of points I want to bring up, and we can discuss it, but I'd appreciate if you just let me go through my stuff first, and then we can come back. And don't get defensive. It's not, again, not trying to rail anyone. Commenting, I do random. I mean, I just start with somebody. But I do tend to go alphabetically because I keep a record of that I've called on somebody to comment, so that in theory I don't skip anybody. And I'm not above that. That's happened. But again, it doesn't really matter who I start with. I'm going to kind of continue alphabetically. And then I just like everybody to have the opportunity to comment. And then I always come back and ask if you guys, if anybody has more comments or questions. So I just think it's fair to let everybody comment once and then come back around. And oftentimes you do have more questions after you've heard other people speak. So I'm okay with that too. I just don't, I don't want to keep going back to somebody that's already commented and therefore not allow somebody that's waiting patiently. So again, we just got to let everybody speak. And then when I say, whatever verbiage I use, if anybody have any more comments, then raise your hand and I'll call on you. Again, I just think everybody should have the opportunity. Interrupting, there's just been a lot of interrupting, and it kind of you know, I just think it's rude. You know, if somebody wants to speak, they should be allowed to speak, and that's commissioners, it's staff, it's applicants, it's you know, the public. If somebody's speaking, just don't interrupt them. You know, if you ask somebody a question, let them answer. You know, and especially for interrupting once the voting starts, don't interrupt. Just, you know, once we vote, that's it. I mean, everybody's had the opportunity to say what they want to say. You know, we cover the proceduring pretty good. So I just don't think there's any reason to interrupt once voting started. Within commenting, please try to stay within the purview of what we're there for. There's a couple different points to this. You know, we need to be careful of referencing past projects and making what I call disparaging remarks. We need to keep stuff, I don't know if the word is impersonal, but you know, sometimes an innocuous comment comes off as, you know, my word, an attack on the homeowner or the applicant. And you just have to be careful of saying stuff that can be taken that way. You know, we're trying to be productive. We're trying to help people achieve what they want. So, you know, giving them negative feedback, you know, isn't always helpful. And again, I think referencing past projects, I think that can open a can of worms for us. And of course, we want to be careful of, you know, when somebody goes back and says, oh, well, you know, that project, you know, 2 months ago or down the street or whatever, you know, because every project's different. I'm not saying don't, I'm just saying be careful of that, make sure it's relevant. Sometimes we go off, you know, the rails on something that really isn't relevant to the project in front of us. You know, stuff like last week, I don't even know if I should bring this up, but you know, with the trench drains, right? I mean, my opinion is that what Matt was trying to do was just get an approval for an amendment to allow what he's done, but he was also planting the seed that we should have a future discussion so that there's some parameters for something like that. And then we went off for, you know, 45 minutes on trench drains, and that wasn't the time to do that. We had a project in front of us. We had an application in front of us. We should have just stuck with that. Some of that's on me. I should have just cut it off. But again, I really like, you know, everybody has good comments. You guys put a lot into this, and you know, I don't want to cut somebody off, and I just don't want to cut anybody off. However, we need to focus on what's in front of us. Paying attention to what the applicant is, or I should say the presenter, because it's not always the applicant, but you know, what they're showing on the plans, what they're speaking of. A lot of questions come up that are, you know, they've already been addressed. Having said that, I've had several conversations with different engineers, and I remind them that sometimes, you know, we go out to projects and we make notes, and it's a question we have. So sometimes even if they mention it, it's still in your notes, so you're still going to ask. So I kind of get that, but I guess it brings me to the big thing is about the repetitiveness, that, you know, sometimes we have, you know, 3 comments in a row that are the same exact comment or question, you know. Voting, just a reminder, voting's done by roll call for posterity. That mainly because of the being on the Zoom. We want to make sure that it's documented accurately. It's not implying that Kristen's not doing her job. Kristen, you're listening. And it's just that I just think in the record, in the video, the recording, whatever, it should be obvious. And again, I do it by alphabet. I do it alphabetically. That's how I document everything. So that will never change. Well, I mean, you can fire me and get somebody else to be chair, but as long as I'm doing it, it's going to be alphabetical, and roll call will always start with Betsy. So I'm always putting her on the hot seat first. Again, I'm just pointing this out. It's different than commenting. We're commenting. I'll just, you know, I can pick on anybody. You know, when we're in person, we can bounce around, but again, it's easier for me to document to make sure I've counted, you know, I've asked everybody to comment. I know you guys will yell out if I didn't give you the chance to comment, and it's not intentional, I miss anybody, but again, that's why I do that. Background noise. If you watch, I don't know what you guys see, but on mine right now, my Hollywood Square is lit up in green because I'm speaking. I notice sometimes when a presenter is speaking that one of the commissioners' screens will light up green, meaning they have some background noise that's overriding. So I just ask you to look at that, and see if you see your screen lit up, and you're not intentionally speaking, then maybe mute yourself. And go backwards a little bit. When you're speaking, please look in the camera. It's more sincere, but also you can see when I'm going stop. You know who I'm talking to. Anyway, site visits. This came up a long time ago, but I just thought I'm gonna mention it again. When you go on site visits, dress appropriately, and knock on the door and announce yourself. This time of year, half the people aren't around, but I just think it's a professional courtesy. Knock on the door, just say, "Hey, I'm from conservation." Most people are fine with it, but sometimes they get excited. They see a good-looking bald guy walking in their backyard. So but hey, all right. So despite this little tirade, I really do appreciate every one of you guys, what you do, your commitment, your investment in time, your expertise, and honestly, your opinion. It's very helpful. I think we have a great board. Our meetings have been, except for a couple, they've been very efficient. We get done fairly early, and I'm going to try to stop talking so that we're not going even later tonight. But again, I just want to cover some ground rules. Just try to stay focused on what's in front of us. There's things we should bring up for later. I mentioned earlier about Woodneck. They'd like to speak. That's a great thing. But we just need some time to put it on an agenda. The thing with the trench drains, that needs to be discussed. We need to come up with some parameters for that. But again, that's a separate discussion. All right, positive stuff. All right. Every week, I express my gratitude to the staff. You guys do a great job, and we really do appreciate it. You make our lives easier. I think you really help the applicants. I know since I started on the board, things have gotten a lot more streamlined. I really like the staff reports. I think they're fantastic. I think they help us. They help the applicants. I just think it's great. So that's sincere. I know I say it every week because I have it written down because that's the way I operate, but it is sincere. And I'd especially like to offer kudos to Ms. Bergeron, who's the only one that gets that respect, which she's called Ms. Bergeron every time. But in my tenure on the board, agents' participation has been sporadic at best. That's no disrespect to the past agents, but I never appreciated the value of the agents' participation until Kevin and now Alyssa. And I just think it's fantastic. I think the stuff that you handle, the input you have, I just think it's great. So I can't give you a raise, so I'm just going to give you some praise. What can I tell you? All right. And I don't know if there's any engineers or anything still watching, but they've been great about with their narratives and presentations. They've been much more efficient. We're right to the point. I love when they call out the stuff that they know is wrong, right? Coastal banks, right? I mean, it's great. Don't hide it. Let's just deal with it, So I don't know. Please just take this with a grain of salt. I just want to see the meetings, stay efficient. The interruptions and the repetitiveness of my pet peeves. And I just like to see less of that. And I think overall would make us more efficient. And now if you want to have an election next week, kick me out. I get it. I'm done. Thank you. With that, we have one more motion.
I make a motion to adjourn Harlow Hawks. And thank you.
Gladfelter second. Gladfelter, aye.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Tug eye. Thank you, Jamie.
Pat and I.
Thank you, everyone. We're
Good night,
adjourned. Thank you for
guys.
listening.
Hi, everybody.
Night, everyone.